So I have been, following comic comics for like a couple of years now, maybe. I don't know how long, but I mean, now it's just like now it's all this infighting and drama within the ComicsGate thing. The Ethan guy, as you can see here, Comic Artist Pro Secrets on YouTube. Um, Now what he does, there's another guy called Eric July, and he makes comics also, and he was a like I guess very big YouTuber, but like right wing kind of like or a libertarian sort of, just an anti woke guy like that was worked with the Blaze and stuff, and he rapped and stuff. That's what I remember seeing him from years back, like, and then just him. He did do commentary videos a lot, but now he does the Rippaverse. Now the comic artist for secrets guy here, pretty much just talks about what this guy Young Rippa is doing and what he's putting out comics wise. And he was like, when he first started out, he was talking to the ComicsGate guys. He was talking to the Ethan Van Sciver guy, and he was even on his channel a bunch. Then the ISOM comic book came out, and some people, well, it did like really, really good. I don't know if it's because he worked on the Blaze. He just had a huge, I guess, YouTube channel. More than the ComicsGate guys usually made and stuff, but it was because he had a bigger channel and all that stuff too. But they were supportive for a while, and then like I guess recently, the Ethan guy was mad that Eric July sent him some message apparently saying, "Hey, it's not cool that you talk to this some guy that attacking him online and stuff." So like Van Sciver guy here, comic artist pro secrets, kind of said, "Oh, he was threatening me to he was telling me to not talk to anyone that he didn't want me to talk to there." And, maybe that was what he meant by that. I don't know. Like, at first, I did think the Eric July guy was being way too oversensitive. And I did agree with Ethan. Yeah, why would he send him a DM like that? And I was taking it all from Ethan's side. The Ethan guy now makes these daily videos about the Young Rippa's guy's comic business, the Rippaverse. Puts out videos called Trashcast. See, as you can see here, this one's number 38. This one's number 37. This one's so he does these every day about Eric July and the Rippaverse. Every day. Every little thing they tweet out. They had a new comic book come out that was like a female superhero called Yaira. And he also doesn't like this guy, Yellow Flash. Him and the Yellow Flash guy, who also is a big YouTuber, maybe I'll pull him up too, I guess. He is a YouTuber, commenter, whatever, commentator. And he does these kind of like, look, oh, Marvel boss cries about lack of X-Men entry. Like, these are all, he's like an anti-woke guy, which all these people are, by the way. This is all infighting amongst the people that are against the establishment. They're now decided, let's become the establishment and start doing cancel culture. So the Yellow Flash guy, he also is working on releasing a comic because he saw ComicsGate. He thought he was a supporter of it. He actually was always him. He was on the Ethan guy's channel before. He had Ethan on his channel. He had all the ComicsGate people on his channel before. It was all like they were all friendly with each other. But then Yellow Flash announces he has a comic coming out, and apparently he asked Ethan to do a cover for it, and it was Ethan said, okay, you'll have to pay me this much, and I guess the Yellow Flash guy took it as a fuck you or something, like, because he thought they were friends and it was too high of a rate or something. I don't know. And then he blocked Ethan on Twitter, or X, as it's called now. So, I don't know, I might be missing some stuff there, but not really. I'm pretty sure that's basically what the Yellow Flash thing is. And ever since then, Ethan kind of has been on the warpath also for Yellow Flash. And I'm sure when Yellow Flash's comic comes out, Ethan is going to do these trash casts for that. By the way, other people in ComicsGate are working on the Yellow Flash Guys comic and the Eric July Ripperverse comics. Yeah, so ever since then, I've kind of turned on Ethan because, like, at the time, I was like, okay, why did he block him? That was kind of silly. But Ethan is raging about it. Ethan does these daily trash casts about Yellow Flash, about Eric July, raging. Now he says it's entertainment, and I'm sure, and all his like fans or whatever are like, oh, it's like entertainment. It's I think they kind of spin it that way, but I mean, it's clearly not a joke. He's really he's upset. He's mad. Like he is raging because he got blocked, and because Eric July sent a DM that said, "Hey, why are you talking to that guy that wants to ruin my business or whatever?" Now Ethan took that as a you can't talk to anyone that criticizes me, which I think is a little too is misrepresenting that message. I mean, if Eric July sent him more messages saying, "Hey, I told you already, don't talk to someone that slams my comics," then yeah, you know. And I just like so that's embarrassing, and I don't know, like, because ComicsGate was like Ethan, and then a lot of other comic people that would go on Ethan's channel. That's kind of how I thought of ComicsGate. Now I think, okay, everybody was right, like, because I would hear people say that Ethan needs to be the leader of ComicsGate or whatever, and he joked about it before, and a lot of people joked about it. And I thought, oh, that's funny that they say that, but like, I didn't think that was true. And now I'm kind of like, I guess that could be true because him raging about, endlessly every day for like one little DM and a slight, and also being blocked by the Yellow Flash guy to rage and do these casts every single day. When this guy, by the way, Ethan, has a family, he has he's still working on a comic that's like 4 years late, by the way, called Rainbow the Brute. That's like about which I almost sent money for it because it did sound like a good idea. And I probably would have got it if I knew it wasn't 4 years late or something. But I don't think he's even working on it anymore. I mean, he's just doing this. Like, so but this isn't even why I unsubscribed from Ethan and I'm done, and I don't like Ethan anymore, to be honest. There was like, I was talking about how I thought ComicsGate was Ethan and then everybody else that would come on his channel. So there was other people in ComicsGate. They all went to a comic convention in Florida, in Tampa, Florida. And while there, some
drama popped off in Tampa. For real, dead ass. When you go to Tampa, you don't leave without drama, and shit.
okay, so there's this comic creator Patrick Thomas Parnell at a divide in ComicsGate. And he had a little tiff with ComicsGate before that convention, randomly, because it was some weird. He was going to launch some project for this other guy, and that fell through. And then Ethan was like, "I'll do it," and then he got mad that Ethan said, "I'll do it" too quick or something. Now, at the time, I was like, I didn't like. I was on Ethan's side only, and I was like, why is he complaining? Now I kind of get like, oh, they wanted to do the project. I'm sure I'm sure like anybody would have been annoyed that, Ethan was like, I'm doing it now because it got messed up. I'm just going to do it. Like he basically put a tweet out. I remember saying like, hey, if this has to be done, I'll do it or something like that. Like making it seem like, and then he did try to spin it like, hey, I mean, look, we have to do it, so I'll do it. Like, that way it gets done kind of mentality. But like, yeah, you're it's weird though. When you watch one channel, you're only getting his side. So if anybody watched my channel only, and this is all they knew of ComicsGate, they would only get my side. Maybe I'm missing. I'm sure I am missing a ton of shit, but it was basically Ethan and the Jon Malin guy had a rift publicly, at least. I'm sure other people were upset, but they started kind of roasting this Patrick Parnell guy on their streams. I wasn't really that into it. I wasn't into it at the time, I'll be honest. Like, and it kept going on, but then it seemed to have healed when that comic convention came, and they went to Florida. Everything seemed to be going well. It's ComicsGate. They all went to Patrick Parnell, also known as Riot Press Comics, apparently. And all of the rest of the ComicsGate creators had gone to the comic convention in Tampa, Florida. What they didn't know was that more drama would be made out of non-existent drama. That there was no real drama, but something would be made into non-stop drama. What is that thing, you asked, that happened at the comic convention?
Everything horrible you can dream of happened because they went to a dungeon, a sex club themed bar.
Or sex. It was called the Dungeon. They all went to
the castle, where you go to get your fucking balls stomped on.
Okay, so this is where some of them went, not all of them. But one of the nights, the Patrick Parnell guy suggested, hey, let's go to this weird dungeon, the castle bar, but it has this dungeon part. And yeah, this is what it looks like, a lounge to me from here. And this guy, Jon Malin, who I just talked about a couple minutes ago, he's another ComicsGate artist who makes his own comics. He's like, he found out apparently about the them going to this sex club themed bar. I guess they did say that there was like some guy that was getting whipped there, or some BDSM set up in the corner somewhere. But so they went there, and but anyway, the Jon Malin guy could not get over this and made stream after stream about them going to this sex themed dungeon, whatever, goth bar called the Castle in Tampa, Florida. He initially said it was a joke. He called it's kayfabe, he said, like wrestling, WWE. Kayfabe is when you are doing a bit or whatever, I guess, in wrestling or something. He kept saying it was a joke, but he kept also focusing on it and doing these like streams that he would like sometimes private on Rumble. And I did check out a few of these, and there's a certain type of person. I don't know this Jon Malin guy personally or anything, but there's a certain person, like some people will say it's a joke when they are not in fact really joking, but they're just like, oh, you're sensitive. Why are you so sensitive? It's a joke for me to, and like, so that became a whole thing. Like he kept going on about the dungeon thing. The Patrick guy was, I have to get back into true crime mode. Patrick Parnell was none too pleased about this development that Jon Malin did about the dungeon stuff. I do think you should. Patrick had a right to, talk to Jon on some stream or just debate him or whatever. Maybe they just didn't want to mess up their business because they did have crossover fans, and that is understandable. And that's the thing that they left out, like this Jon Malin guy and the Ethan guy kept leaving that out. They kept doing their narratives, which was like the Jon Malin guy was just like doing this semi-comedic bit, which at first was funny, like, oh, they're satanic. And he did pictures with like he marked it up and like acting like it was like witchcraft and stuff. But then he kept going on about it. Very fixated on the Patrick guy and anybody that hung around the Patrick guy. So the Patrick guy had a table at the convention because I guess you book tables if you're a comic creator. And then some of the ComicsGate people sat at the Patrick guy's table. And you're going to, like, basically the whole thing at the end of the story is the Ethan guy and this Jon Malin guy just had basically their whole problem was that anybody was still even talking to Patrick. Patrick had this rift with those two guys. And in their mind, Jon Malin and Ethan Van Sciver, that means he had a problem with ComicsGate as a whole. And that's how they kept literally explaining it, too. They didn't say, oh, he has a problem with us, meaning me, Ethan, and John. He framed it as, oh, Patrick is against ComicsGate. This is how this is. And he was actually being dishonest there. I now know. But at the time, I did buy their narrative. I was like, oh, yeah, because CG is just Ethan's channel. And, like, then everybody else is like a low-hanging fruit that, like, Ethan helps out or whatever. And by the way, I'm not on anyone's side. I'm not on the Patrick guy's side. This is just my subjective opinion. Okay, so everybody who hung out with Patrick and went to that dungeon party was called a Dungeoneer. And they called them all the Dungeoneers. So everybody that hung out with Patrick and by extension went to that bar, they were all called the Dungeoneers. They were the bad people. And everybody who like went to Ethan's chat and still was like loyal, quote unquote, to was like a follower of Ethan and Jon Malin guys. The Jon Malin guys still. They went to and they started attacking all these Dungeoneers that this group that they made up. The Dungeoneers. Now it was a funny like meme or idea at first, like, oh, the Dungeoneers is funny as a sex club. They're all sex freaks. Like as a joke. I thought like it's funny as a joke at first, but then you realize no, they were actually doing like purity testing and like trying to basically I mean, I'm not even joking. A lot of the people were calling all those Dungeoneer people. I think I saw a picture or two, and yeah, they were just in that lounge area, like drinking a beer or something. That's what I saw. So, all those Dungeoneer people, including Narwhal and also this guy Kelsey, who is going to work on that Yellow Flash Guys comic. So he's going to be attacked soon again too. All those people started to be called Dungeoneers. All of Ethan's and John's fans literally would call them traitors. Like how could you leave ComicsGate? That because this was the narrative that was being put out by two people. The Ethan guy, I mean, look, he has a huge channel compared to the rest of the ComicsGate people. He had like the biggest channel. So it's understandable to think he's the head of it or like but yeah, like he's the center of it. Everybody like gravitates around because he has the biggest channel. But the way they framed it as he's leaving CG, like, was a dishonest thing to say. And then everybody else who was just associated with the Patrick guy because they hung out with him at that convention, that became a, like, heretical act. Like, you will not associate with Patrick. You will not talk to people that we say you can't like. This is what really happened. So they kept going on about the Dungeoneer thing, but mostly Jon Malin, like on his channel. He kept doing these streams on Rumble. Like, I didn't watch most of them, but like, I did see I tuned into like maybe a couple. Because I was like, why is he doing these on Rumble? And I think he did have his YouTube channel taken down, so I think that's why. From watching a couple of these, it was clear, like, okay, he's not joking. He's mad. Like, he was raging about, like, the Dungeoneers, and naming the creators in it and being like, kind of theorizing almost, like, I don't know what they're doing over there, but, like, this is, they're backstabbing us. They kept calling them backstabbers, traitors, like they had a Discord, what I'm assuming, oh wait, maybe it was a Twitter group. So they had a direct, like a DM group, like like, how you have group text messages. This is what it seemed like to me. And with the Patrick guy. So they kept spinning that as a narrative, like, oh, the Dungeoneers have a DM group, which is bad because they're plotting against us. They were going like, hey, these guys are plotting against ComicsGate because and the only reason they said that, I realized this later, it's because they just were talking to the Patrick guy in a message group. And then all of Ethan's fans and Jon's fans started, that's why that's probably the main reason why they were calling them traitors and all this stuff, because they were hearing from Ethan and the Jon Malin guy, hey, these guys have a message group that they're messaging in, which means that they're plotting to take over ComicsGate. Now, like, later I realized that doesn't even make sense. What do you mean take over Comics? Like, that they were plotting against... Okay, so it did seem like, I will be fair, the Patrick guy did, like, want to get back at the Ethan guy and the Jon guy. Like, he was trying to get back at them. He was maybe talking to people about... I mean, I know he was talking bad about the Ethan guy and all this stuff in the group, and maybe, I think, maybe trying to wrap them up in the drama too. Anyway, they ran with the whole, like, oh, they have a direct message group. They have a message thread going where they're talking to the Patrick guy. That means they're traitors. Like, they're... What's being said there? Like, oh, this is scary. This is bad. This is SJW stuff. This is cancel. Like, this is... And to me it was just like, okay, I'm sure he's talking shit about the Ethan guy, but to me, people just text each other. Anyway, it was hard for me to understand what the big deal was. I still don't think there was a big deal. I just think it was made into one. Like, so the Dungeoneer sex club thing was also lumped in with this direct message group. Yeah, so they were saying, oh, they have these DMs going on. They're in a message group. That's bad. That's So then Ethan's fans, Jon's fans, all went and attacked everybody that was even talking in that group. And then eventually, they had a whistleblower guy, I guess, who was in that, like, message group. He, like, ratted on all of them, and he told the Ethan and the Jon guy, hey, I have all the messages. Like, and he gave them all the messages. The Jon Malin guy and the Ethan guy were talking about, like, okay, we're going to reveal all these direct messages. And we're going through all the direct messages. And I already was like, what is happening? Because this is what I thought you guys were against. Like, this is, like, okay, maybe it's not woke politics, but it is woke behavior, because you're literally, like, going through messages, and anybody who even talked to the Patrick guy is now a traitor, has to be exposed. And that's what they did. The Jon Malin guy read through like the worst quote unquote messages in there, not from everybody, but mainly from the Patrick guy, I think, who, to be fair, did have an issue with them. But I was okay with that rivalry. Like, okay, you guys have a rivalry. You guys don't like each other. But I was more like, okay, but why you... Again, my main issue was now we're going through messages of anyone who was just in this group to root out who the bad person is. That's called a purity test, and it's like, it's what woke people do. You know, they go back through your tweets and they find the worst thing, they expose them, and they call you whatever, you know. That's what was happening in ComicsGate. You know, the Ethan and Jon guy were doing that. They were going through the messages. They did do that. Ever since then, all those Dungeoneer people basically don't go on the Ethan guy's channel anymore. They don't. That's also another reason they're now called traders and all this kind of bullshit, because on top of that, like I was talking about earlier, Ethan only does drama now. Like, he doesn't even draw and stream anymore. He doesn't barely talks about comics. All he does is rage against that Eric July guy, and maybe sometimes the Yellow Flash guy, maybe sometimes. I think the Patrick stuff is kind of, I don't think he talks about that. I don't know. I don't watch his channel anymore. Why are you reading private messages on live that, like, and everybody else was like telling me, hey, if you're in a DM group, just know that it's gonna be read and found out someday. And that's what they were saying over and over again. Like, this was the party line to say. Now look, I know messages leak. I'm not an idiot. Like, I know they probably, like, to me that's just like, okay. So now ComicsGate is something where you just go, anything I don't like that you might say about me, I'm gonna expose it, you know. So that's what the Ethan guy is all about now. Exposing people that he doesn't like raging against them, going over every little tweet, every little video they put out, every little. If they put a comic out, he goes over what's wrong with it. So that's who he became, and some of these Dungeoneer people don't want to deal with that, and they're not going on his channel. People are calling them traitors. Why'd you leave ComicsGate is what they're saying. But really, it's probably a mix of everything. Like, hey, I don't want to deal with the drama. I also don't like that everybody, that they just called me a traitor and said I was in some coup takeover just because I was in a message group that maybe they didn't even like know they were in, you know? I don't know, like a lot of these little message groups, like you know. So I really had a problem with the fact that they read and went over every fucking direct message in that group to everyone. And I was like, okay, you're being woke. Like, this is woke cancel culture stuff. This is like China. You know, it's like, hey, let's get the mob together and let's read all the things they did wrong. It's like a cult fucking thing to do. It's like, hey, you betrayed the cause. You know, and then I'm going to read you a list of things you did wrong. That's literally what happened. They just kept doing it. So I said, all right. And then I had to unfollow the Ethan guy, and I thought the Jon Malin guy was weirdly just angry about that whole. It was like, you can just tell when somebody's like really joking or not. Like, I can tell. To say something's a bit over and over, like at some point, dude, like, and I don't think it obviously wasn't the fact, oh, you can't make fun of that. It wasn't that. And that's what they keep saying now. Another reason why I stopped watching, because they keep saying, oh, nobody can take jokes about going to a sex dungeon. Like, no, that's not what it was. Like, it was the fact that, like, you did the guilt by association thing that the woke and did. Like, that is their playbook, and you followed it. The Patrick guy, he didn't like you didn't like him, and then everybody that hung out with him at the convention and that he, put in a message group, and then you go on a like rampage about, the Dungeoneers like doing this coup behind the scenes. That's literally how they would talk about it. They'd be like, hey, you would not believe the shit they're saying in these messages. And then it was like, from what I heard, nothing. But to me, again, like, even if they did say something terrible, like, again, that's free speech. Like, I mean, this is just completely insane what happened. Like, and I guess I don't really see the other comic creators wisely really delving in talking about this because, like, you know, they don't want to get called traitors anymore. They don't want more people to come swarming and saying, hey, like, oh, you're just going to leave behind, like, this guy who supported you and stuff. That's how they talk to these people. They just had so much of an issue with what people said in a message group. Just like, that's what I kept saying in some of these people, like, guys' chats and stuff. I was like, one comic creator was like going on about this message group, and I just kept saying, like, okay, but what's the big deal? Like, why do you have to? I still, like, think it was very weird the way they framed it. Like, oh, this is good. They're trying to take over and ruin CG. Like, but really, all they were saying was like that they were in a message group and that they were talking shit. You know, I mean, you don't know what people are saying about you all the time, so who cares? I just don't get why it was a big deal. Like, the fact that they were able to have a message group. So anyway, that was the whole narrative that, like, this DM group was like, uh, they acted like that was like literally a betrayal when it was literally just a direct message group of mostly the Patrick guy complaining about the Ethan guy and then trying to maybe one up him in certain ways. Like, that's what it seemed like. But to say it was like he was trying to betray CG, and that doesn't make sense. But it only does make sense if the Ethan guy thinks he is ComicsGate. What they were doing was publicly, like, trashing all those people that were even hanging out with Patrick. That's what happened. That's what it came down to, was everybody that hung out with Patrick at that and went to that weird bar was, like, being cross-examined. It was like this, like, little, you know, it was like the Red Scare type of thing. It was like when, I don't know. I mean, so that is why I stopped following the Ethan guys, and I'm not sure, you know, ComicsGate really is just kind of a concept now, but those two guys seem to think it's just them, and who they talk to is ComicsGate. So if you don't like them, you're out, quote unquote, of ComicsGate. I mean, that's the only thing explanation that makes any sense to me, because of the way their fans also are still attacking those people that hung out with the Patrick guy, the Dungeoneer group or whatever. They were cast out of the little basically now what's happened now is the circle of creators that the Ethan guy talks to doesn't include those Dungeoneer people. A lot of that is because they don't want to be participating in the Ethan guy's constant trashing of those other two big YouTubers I talked about. They don't want to also keep the drama going, but that's all the Ethan guy's doing now. So the fact that they're not going on his channel, like, I'm like, well, yeah, I wouldn't either. I mean, first of all, he digs up every direct message you might send someone if he doesn't like the person you're talking to. I mean, so that's what happened. Anyway, I mean, that was a long rabbit hole.